Hey everyone, my name's Elaine. I'm the book blogger behind Utopia State of Mind. Today I'm bringing you my January wrap-up. I am not too late on this, so let's just get into it. I read 21 books in January. It's a lot less. Oh, hold on. In my notebook in front of me, I have the stats from 2021. So in 2021, it is still the least I've read in the last 13 months. So basically, the least I read in 2021 for November was 22. So 21 is still under 22. So I feel really good about that. I'm not really trying to focus on the numbers. It's more just kind of my mental well-being and how I feel about reading. January wasn't so great. I felt really bad in the beginning of January because I was so behind. And then the latter half of January, I was then so behind, I felt really, really even worse. So that wasn't great, but I still only read 21 books, so kind of. Of the 21 books, 13 of these featured characters of color, so 62%. I am just like so happy about that. And 5 of them featured queer characters and 24%. So you win some, you lose some. I wanted to get to 33% and 50%, so I got to 62% and 24%. Not bad. As I said, in general, I don't feel so great about my month. But I've read a lot of really great books. So I'm going to chat about the books, the notable reads, basically, of January 2022. I had a whole, just a bunch of different things. I'm going to start off with middle grade. So I really, really enjoyed Never After the Stolen Slippers. I really enjoyed Never After the 13th Fairy, I think is what it's called. I'll leave the link for my review down below because it is a series. It's this fantastic middle grade series that kind of turns fairy tales on their head. Basically, the main character, Philomena, she reads these books series that she really loves, and then she kind of just falls into that fictional world and realizes that, everything in the, what we know about stories is not really what happens in the stories. So, the enemies or the villains aren't necessarily who we think. In Never After the 13th Fairy, I can't remember exactly which ones. I think it was more about establishing her, getting to know these characters from the book. But Never After the Stolen Slippers, the main one is that it sort of turns Cinderella on its head and says that Cinderella is the villain and that her stepsisters, I can't remember their names because I just can't. I think one is named Hortense. The other one might be named Beatrice. Fingers crossed. But that's kind of what I mean by turns fairy tales on its head. Never After, the entire series is so good at flipping these fairy tale stories and tropes on its head and kind of merging and mashing them all together. It is written super lyrically. I listened to the first one on audiobook, and I would really recommend that one because it has you can almost hear someone reading the story to you out loud while you even read the book because it is that lyrical. So in all, it just felt so nostalgic, and it's a middle grade series I recommend to everyone. The next one, let's just go down the list basically. The next one is Neon Gods. Okay, Neon Gods is a Hades Persephone romance book. It features 2 characters, Hades and Persephone, and basically Persephone goes into the underworld to escape of marriage that she doesn't really want to be in, but is organized politically by her mother, and goes into the underworld and then basically has to then fake marry him to get out of this other marriage. So that's basically the setup. Persephone is one of my favorite Greek figures in Greek mythology, so I was so excited for this one. I've seen it everywhere on Book Talk and just all over the internet. Barnes and Nobles is basically everywhere. And I ended up reading it and I really loved it. It was just such good fun. The romance aspects of it and the chemistry and all the steaminess was there for it. And in general, I just really liked this image of Persephone. I think that in a lot of retellings of Persephone, Persephone can seem very angelic and very innocent and doe-eyed, and I don't mind that at all. But in Neon Gods, Persephone definitely has a little bit more of a kind of, I don't really know how to describe it, a little bit more of a, there's more than meets the eye to Persephone. There's definitely kind of the image of Persephone that we see, but in Neon Gods it's very committed to deconstructing that and deconstructing her image and seeing who she is underneath that. And so I really loved that kind of character work in Neon Gods. The next one is another adult read, but it's an adult fiction thriller. Cherish Pharah by Bethany C. Morrow. Bethany C. Morrow wrote, oh, so many. So Many Beginnings, I think, is Bethany's latest book, which is a retelling of Little Women. And then I'm looking on my shelf. It's, oh, I organized all the books actually by color, so it's actually different. It is A Song Below Water and A Chorus Still Rises. Those are also recent releases from Bethany C. Morrow. I really enjoyed all of those, and so I was very excited for this adult thriller. And like, I don't know how to feel about it. I finished it days ago, and I still am reeling about the ending. Basically, Cherish Pharah is about these two girls and their friends, and one is named Cherish and one is named Pharah. And, oh wait, no, is one named Cherish? Yes, one is Cherish and one is named Pharah. And it's about their friendship and obsession and love and interactions between them and their families and each other. Like, it is so thrilling. It is so suspenseful. It is gripping. I basically had to just keep reading because I needed to know what happened. It is this, like, story where we're not really sure what's happening. It very much has, like, a vibe of unreliability, but mostly because, like, there are a lot of situations, I'm not going to spoil it, of situations where we're not sure if we're really seeing the whole story. And it was just, I couldn't stop reading. As I said, I finished it days ago, and I still don't know how I feel even about what happened, because the last, like, third of it was just basically, I read in one sitting. It was, like, one after another, twists and thrills and just everything. I would highly recommend it if you are intrigued by adult thrillers, if you're intrigued by Bethany C. Morrow's writing sort of trajectory, and if you're also intrigued by stories about friendship that borders on obsession and love. Like, I think those three are fantastic descriptors of Cherish Pharah. The next ones I want to go into are YA contemporaries. I have two. The first one is You Truly Assumed. It features three main characters, Sabraya, Pharah, and Zakat. I can't remember. I think those are the names. The names are all, like, of all of these books, the names are just completely eluding me at the moment. But it features those three characters, and they are all navigating their own identities, whether that be as, like, Black Muslim teenagers or as Muslim teenagers in general. They are just really interrogating that, but also they connect on an online platform or an online blog, You Truly Assumed, which is Sabraya's blog, which accidentally gets made public. And so it's also about navigating and creating online spaces, navigating and sort of online activism, but also activism as a whole. It's a lot about Islamophobia and racism, but at the same time, it's tri-perspective. It features each of their perspectives, and each of them are struggling with, for example, reconciling also their half-family, or, you know, they're each dealing with their own things. And so really, really loved is that the author is able to balance each of them as characters and also their connected stories. It was just so fabulous. It made me so emotional, and I just loved this balance of them talking about how they experience Islamophobia in different ways and online activism. I just felt like it was super relevant and necessary for contemporary readers. It really made me also think about, like, how I interact with online spaces, and they were also just such fantastic characters individually and all together. It was just a major win all around. The last one for YA contemporary is Ophelia Ever After. I've been looking forward to Ophelia After All. I keep thinking it's Ophelia Ever After, but it's Ophelia After All. I thought I was gonna love this, and I was not prepared for how much I was, like, swept away with how much I loved it. It features Ophelia, who is a girl who is struggling with her queer questioning identity, but also kind of like her friendship group fracturing at the end, or the preparation of the end of high school. So it's a very fraught time. And so then her questioning queer identity only kind of builds into, like, a pressure cooker environment where, you know, her friends are cracking, there's tension in her family, she's not sure who she is at the moment anymore and what, like, labels apply to her. It was fantastic. I knew that I was gonna love, like, the questioning identity and that questioning journey, but overall I just loved Ophelia as, like, a character, period. I just loved how much she loved roses. I loved how she was really kind of processing grief over, you know, leaving a person you thought you were behind. I loved how she was navigating making mistakes in her friend group, and also being, like, really relatably unsure of what was happening. The ending was fantastic. I wasn't sure if it was gonna end that way, but I'm so happy it did. And it was just like a book that like made me feel so happy and fulfilled and just satisfied. Like, it was a warm hug book, even though there are a lot of really serious issues of, like homophobia as well. It was such a warm feeling book at the end where I like finished it and I was like, oh, my heart is so full. And now we're going to go on to YA fantasy. The first one is Fire Becomes Her. This is Rosie Thor's latest YA release. It features Ingrid. I'm pretty sure her name's Ingrid. Committing to it. It features Ingrid. It's kind of like a prohibition style fantasy where there's magic called flare, and flare is kind of like flare and flicker basically. And so flare is the purest form of the magic, and flicker is like a little taste of the magic. And so basically Ingrid is really craving security and power for security, and so she's like engaged to this really wealthy guy whose dad is running for office, and to like gain entrance into the family because his dad is very much against her because she doesn't really have a large family name. She's not wealthy. Like, it's very classist, very elitist. And so she agrees to help him on his political campaign and do some spying on the opposition to gain his trust. And of course, everything kind of crumbles after that. And what I really loved about Fire Becomes Her is not only the action and also political campaigning with fantasy. Like, what a fantastic mix. But what I really loved about Fire Becomes Her is Ingrid really has to struggle with herself. She really has to break down, like, is the dream that I have been pursuing, power and security and notoriety and societal acceptance, is that worth it at all costs? Am I willing to sacrifice people I love, family, morals, ethics, the community I belong to, the past memories of who I am? Like, am I ready to sacrifice it all? And if I'm not, what should I do? So she really has to reevaluate what she wants, and it really, that really resonated with me on some level, because I feel like we can get so set on a path and so set on okay, this is what's gonna happen and then I'm gonna be happy and that's it. But I think that Fire Becomes Her asks really important questions about what you're willing to do for that happiness and what happens if you're not happy. You pin all your hopes on, like, I'm gonna be happy when this happens. And then you get closer and closer to that and you're not happier, and it's kind of like, well, when does happiness start? So that's why I really love Fire Becomes Her. The next one is Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. I am obsessed with this book. I love time travel, okay? Give me all the time travel books. I love them all. I'm so obsessed. And Only a Monster features Joan, who is the main character, who is half monster, half human, and she stays like for a summer with her half monster family because she spends every summer, I think, with them. And she meets this boy because she loves like history and archivist stuff. And first of all, love that. Second of all, she meets this guy, and she's like kind of feeling him out. They're like hitting it off, and then her entire world collapses because she realizes that this guy is a monster hunter and she's half monster. And so basically then everything about her powers, her ability, her family, her world view is challenged and questioned and reevaluated. Like, it is just non-stop action after that. And it really there were so many twists. First of all, I loved the unique world building of the different magical families. That was amazing. I loved the unique time travel world building. That was fantastic. But I think my favorite element of Only a Monster is the way that Vanessa is able to use half human, half monster as a lens for also talking about Joan's biracial identity. Like, that connection and that way that it explored in fantasy, just the inner writing obsessed person that I am, loved that. But also I loved it because fitting in is a huge theme in Only a Monster. And I really resonate with fitting in, especially as a transracial adoptee. I really resonate with not feeling sure which parts of you fit into where. And Only a Monster, the last 40%, like, I need book 2. The last 40% had me like obsessively reading. I read it in one sitting because I needed to find out what happened. Vanessa throws in all of these things that are going to be explored in book 2 that you're going to need immediately after finishing book 1. I loved Only a Monster so much. I'm obsessed. And the last one is the only one I have in physical copy because Tracy was so kind enough to send me a copy of this book, and it is 1,000 Steps into Night. I keep saying it's 1,000 Steps into the Night. I just add those and subtract those whenever I want. But it's 1,000 Steps into Night by Tracy Chi. It is about, I'm going to look a little bit on it because it's, what I love is that Japanese influenced fantasy brimming with demons, adventure, and plans gone awry. Perfectly summarizes that. But anyway, it's about Miyuko who, like, through a series of very bad events, basically, somehow gets in contact, let's just say, with a demon, and when she gets in contact with a demon, she transforms into a demon, and she has deadly, like, touch powers, and she starts turning blue. So, you know, it's a serious matter. And when she does, she tries to get a way to reverse this curse and return back to normal. Also, a lot of bad things have happened. I don't want to spoil them, but a lot of bad things have happened. So she's basically just trying to fix those mistakes and not become a demon. And through that, she has a bunch of different plans that go awry and a huge adventure about how she can quest on it. And first of all, that questing, like not knowing where that book was going to go, it was fantastic. It kind of just swept me away. There are a lot of things that I want to talk about right now that are like, oh, and this element I really loved, and this element, but I can't because I'm just looking and it's not in the back, so I don't want to spoil any of it. So, you know, there are a lot of elements in it that I was not expecting and that I loved wholeheartedly. But I think what I really loved about 1,000 Steps into Night is Miyuko, because she's really struggling at the beginning. I keep saying struggling in this one, but basically she's really loud, and so I loved that, first of all. But what I really loved is that Tracy's able to take her character and have her character go through and examine kind of like images of femininity and sexism within this fantasy world, and about the ways that like women and girls can't, you know, there are so many different things, but the ways that women and girls can't like check into an inn by themselves, so she has to dress up, or the ways that, you know, they can't inherit property, you know, all of these different things. It really examines those different things and how upset she is, rightly so, with that. And I felt like from the very beginning, her character is so clearly, you know, not fitting into the traditional molds of femininity, with her being really loud. And I just like, I really loved that one characteristic was so emblematic of that very rigid box femininity we find ourselves in, where it's like, oh, you know, women and girls aren't really loud, they're not really rude, they're not like really aggressive, like all of these different things. And I thought it was really interesting how when she's gaining or transforming into a demon and she has all these magical powers, it's interesting because like as a girl, she wants power and she wants to be able to do things that she can't, and as a demon she can do things that she shouldn't or can't, maybe. And so this kind of struggle between feeling so like she doesn't have very much power versus having way too much kind of dangerous power, that conflict was really interesting to see play out. And it's really interesting to see the idea of power and what you might do with power explored throughout 1,000 Steps into Night. I really loved it for that reason. The action and adventure like totally is there, but that was certainly the reason why I loved 1,000 Steps into Night the best. And yeah, that is the end of my January wrap-up. Those are all of my favorite notable reads in January. There are a lot of ones as well that I really love, but these were like my cream of the crop. You have to read these, go read these, and or go pre-order them if they haven't come out yet. Favorite reads of January, and also a little insight into my stats. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please comment below what one of your favorite reads of January was or were. I'd love to read that, and I'd love to chat with you about favorite reads. And I hope to see you in the next video. You know, we're kicking off the favorite reads of 2021, so I hope to see you there as I, you know, start planning my favorite reads of 2022 already. Okay, have a great day. Bye!